Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we are super happy to have you here, and we just ask that you bring an open mind and heart to your listening experience and to be prepared to explore vantage points that I'm convinced will help shift or solidify your current understanding of the ultimate nature of reality in a way that is extremely empowering. Speaking of exploring powerful perspectives, I'm super excited to announce the release of my very first book, The Golden Key: Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. If you're ready to alchemize the circumstances in your life so that your abundance expands to an entirely new level in 2021, head over to goldenkey.gift to download the audio or ebook as my gift to you by using the code POSITIVEHEAD. All right, all you positive heads, on this week's Soul Share episode, I'm very excited to have my good friend Solay Rad here with me on the show. Solay is not only a financial expert and UCLA instructor, but also a radical, yes, I did that on purpose, radical men's coach, helping men step into their authentic power. Hey, Solay, welcome to the show, my friend.
Oh, thank you, Brandon. It's been a long time coming. I'm super excited to be here. And thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, man. I always love to talk about like people's names have like hidden meaning. So, you know, the fact that your last name is Rad is pretty rad, man. You know, it says a lot. We had actually, I just thought of this right now. Your sister and my good friend Beta was on. Did you know she was on that podcast? Like, I don't know, probably 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Yeah, I do remember that because she ended up meeting so many incredible friends afterward through your podcast audience. And it made such a huge difference in the next like 6 months or 1 year of her life in terms of the synchronicities that happened to her. So I'm hoping something similar happens.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, if I remember, she had like an out of body kind of experience, and her and I were talking about it. We spent a lot of time together back around that time. And so I was like, why don't you come on and share with the audience? And yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, she's as radical as I am.
I got to add this because those of you who've been listening for years know my birthday synchronicity story. So me and Beta are really close friends, spent a lot of time together. Her new partner has my birthday. Are they still together, actually, Solay? I hope that's the case.
Oh my God. They have the dreamiest relationship.
Okay. Shoot, I haven't talked to her in a few months. I just like, it was pretty new last time I saw her, but I was just like, of course, because she's such like a sister energy to me. And, you know, it's just as soon as she, of course I met him once, and, you know, it didn't surprise me at all that he had my birthday.
Shay Boland is his name. Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah, super, super cool. Well, let's start with my opening cliche question, and it is this. You're in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You have 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
My passion is exploring the edges of life and expressing my feelings fully and openly and living a life that's radical, colorful, filled with emotions, whether dark or light, so that by the time I die, I could truly say that I lived a fully lived life.
That is a good approach to living. It's like so many people try and play it safe, you know, and it's like, what are you doing? Like, you know, I'm not saying to be reckless, but I've referenced, I had a friend years ago, and I think of him often when this kind of thing comes up. He was, you know, he was inherited a bunch of money from his father when his father passed. So he just kind of like sat, you know, he was very creative and very intelligent, but he just spent his days like, you know, smoking a lot of weed at the time. And we'd go out sometimes, you know, and it was like, I remember him, we were crossing down in Newport Beach, we were crossing the road, and he's hiding behind the pole, you know, where you push the button to say, I want to cross. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, well, what if a car runs off the road and comes right here where we're standing? And I'm like, Oh my gosh. Like you are
Wow.
deep in the fear, my friend. And
Wow.
it's just like, such a sad way to navigate, with so much fear.
Yeah, he needs to hang out with me a little bit.
Yeah, let's get him to your next event, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But before we go down in that rabbit hole, if you would, you have a fascinating backstory, life story. And so please share whatever feels relevant for today's conversation about, who the heck you are and how you got here.
Of course, of course. My story is so much of a part of who I am and what I'm bringing into the world. So I was born in Iran in 1982, and my family was upper middle class Jewish family in Iran. And when I was born, there was a war, and the first 8 years of my life, I spent going in and out of bomb shelters. And at the time, I had no idea. I was like, "Oh, is this how life works?" Because I'd
Right.
never seen
Wow.
anything different. It felt like it was a video game.
Yeah.
And I remember at a very young age making the choice of whether am I feeling scared or am I feeling excited? Because as you know, those two feelings are very close to one another. And I chose excitement in the face of danger instead of the feeling of scared. So after 8 years of being bombed and going in and out of bomb shelters, my parents lost everything they had, their family, their friends, their businesses. And eventually they decided to immigrate to America as refugees. So my sister Beta and I, we got to Los Angeles airport. I'll never forget. It was um, Valentine's Day, 1991.
Wow.
And we got here with just about 3 or 4 suitcases and a duffel bag that my mom had snuck out of the country that was filled with silverware and stuff that had a little bit of value that we can sell and live off of for a little while. Everything else was mostly clothes.
Wow.
And so at a young age, I looked around and I was like, holy crap, like I don't have friends. I don't have a support system. And so I'm going to have to be a provider in this family. I'm going to have to be a supporter of this small unit.
Yeah.
And one day, when my parents were gone, I turned on the TV and I watched this show that completely transformed and somewhat ruined my life. I'm going to give you a guess and see if you can guess. It was a show in the 90s about bikinis and the beach.
You were dumbfounded by Baywatch.
You know what? Baywatch blew my mind. I mean, think about it. Coming from a Middle Eastern country where it was like strict Islamic law, and most women would wear from head to toe burqas. I remember at the age of 6, one time I saw a woman's ankles, and I thought that I had seen like God. And I was
Wow.
so like scared, and I was like, "Oh my God, I saw someone's ankles." And then
Yeah.
to come to America and watch Baywatch, where everybody's running around half naked, it blew my mind.
Yeah.
Blew my mind. It's like seeing a UFO.
Well, I think Pamela Anderson's boobs have been mistaken for a UFO a few times. So that's a whole nother conversation.
They're unidentified for sure. Unidentified. So, and you know what? I had this experience that years later, I realized most American boys have. And if you're a woman out there, I urge you to listen closely. And most of the guys who are listening, I'm sure you're going to relate to this. But most of us guys, when we grow up on TV, what we start to learn is like, wait, maybe if I do what these people are doing and make a lot of money, get a lot of women, I'll be happy and successful and fulfilled and respected. And so that's what I decided to do. I thought, if I'm going to survive in this new country, this new land, I might as well do it the right way and go after as much money and as much women as I can so I could be strong and powerful and to be able to support my family, right? And so I spent a lot of time as a young boy working in downtown LA. At age 14, I started picking up DJing and I started to DJ. And whatever money I would make, I'd bring home to my parents. And in my early 20s, I realized that I wanted to go in business because that's where the money was. But I had no skills. And so what I would do is I would take my dad's suits, the old suits that he brought here from Iran. I would wear his suits, which were like 2 sizes too big for me. And I would sneak into conferences like Tony Robbins events and business events. And I would just crash these events. I would sit in the back with a paper and pen, and I would just take notes like crazy. And I would watch people as they would walk in with their suits and the way they would shake hands and the way they would speak and carry themselves. And I would just take notes on these successful people. And slowly I started to learn how to carry myself, how to behave in a sophisticated manner. But the problem was I still had no money and I still had no women. And so one day I had this radical idea, and I thought, look, if I'm going to shortcut this, I need to hack the system. And most of my friends were like going to nightclubs and bars, trying to like chase women. And as an immigrant, I was too resourceful and too smart to be doing that. So one day I had this crazy idea that I was going to crash the parties at the Playboy Mansion.
That's great.
And so I started a reconnaissance mission. I drove up and kind of paid attention. And next weekend I came back and I noticed that the back entrance of the Playboy Mansion was where a lot of people were walking in with white t-shirts and white jeans. So I had my white shirt and jeans on with a duffel bag, and I approached the back gate of the Playboy Mansion. Felt like James Bond.
Yeah.
And the guy was like, "What are you doing here?" I said, "What do you mean, what am I doing here? I'm late. Don't hold me up." And he's like, "Oh, you work in the kitchen?" I was like, "Of course." And he let me in. And I think it was the confidence that I had achieved from like going to all these like events and sneaking into personal development events. And it all paid off. So I kid you not, I would go into the Playboy Mansion at 5 p.m. I would hide in the bathroom from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock because it was pretty empty at those hours. And every time somebody knocked on the bathroom door, I would have to change my voice so that they wouldn't know it's the same person that's been in there for 3 hours. And at 8 o'clock, I would change my outfit from the white t-shirt, white jeans to the beautiful outfit I had in my duffel bag. And I'd go out there and I'd party.
Wow.
And I'd start to meet people. And I became friends with the bartenders and the coat check lady, and eventually started to get to meet celebrities and started getting invited to other places.
Wow.
Right? So on the outside, it was beautiful. I call this the man with the golden mask. I'll explain what that means in a little bit. But on the outside, I was this like dude that had all these beautiful women around him, hanging out with celebrities, uploading photos on Facebook. Everybody's like, "Wow, you're so incredible." But on the inside, man, I was struggling. Nobody taught me what to do with my feelings. Nobody talks about emotions as a man. Nobody told me how to deal with arguments and challenges and sexual shame, and when it comes to money mindset and having self-confidence and self-esteem from a deep inner place. Nobody taught me about spirituality. So all of these things that were happening in the background of my life, like for example, my parents were still fighting every day about money. We were stuck in a scarcity mentality as immigrants.
Yeah.
None of that showed. All that showed was a strong guy who was like around a lot of women. And so one day I woke up and I started thinking like, there's no amount of beautiful women that's going to heal my heart. It's not going to happen. So I quit the game, and I still realized, I still was like, all right, I still haven't made money because I think money is going to help me. Yeah. Remember, it was money and women. That's what men chase.
Yeah. Right.
So I decided, I settled down. I got this incredible, spiritual, soulful girlfriend, and I decided to go after wealth and success, to become a provider. I got all these licenses, went to school for many more years, became a financial advisor, worked 60-hour weeks, eventually became an instructor at UCLA, started my own financial advisory company, became number 12 financial advisor in America. Wow. And I was so proud of myself. By the age of 34, I was making $1 million of income just to me.
Yeah.
And I was so happy because I thought, you know what? Here's this refugee, bomb shelter immigrant kid. Look at him. Like, I was so proud of myself. But again, behind the scenes, behind closed doors, I was still struggling. I was suffering. I was disconnected from my feelings because all I had learned in these seminars, whether it was Tony Robbins or whoever else I listened to, they were all focused on mindset. They were all focused on ambition, on drive, on don't give up. And I had gotten there. I had gotten to the $1 million mark. I was at the top of this mountain that I had climbed, but on the way up, I had bruises, broken bones, and I had sucked it up all the way. And now that I was on top of the mountain, I was completely like hurting because the mindset wasn't going to help me. I didn't need to be more tough. I needed to be more sensitive, and I didn't know how. Have you had an experience like that before, Brandon?
Yeah, I would say, not quite, I haven't hid out in the bathroom. But yeah, I definitely have felt that, that same feeling of achieving something that is maybe not the norm. And then realizing like, oh, hold on, this is like, it's kind of like Jim Carrey said, I wish everyone could become rich and famous so you could see it's not where it's at. And I think having any degree of that maybe is above and beyond the, standard kind of normal experience that people have, you start very quickly seeing that like, hold on, this is not all it's cracked up to be. Or, the first experience with that sort of thing was being in a band, years ago and how glamorous that kind of thing can be. And then really it's like, the hard work and lugging drums and, just like it's not all it's kind of cracked up to be. And I think that's almost always discovered to be the case with anything that is, glamorized on TV or movies or, in mainstream culture. And, it just, at the end of the day, I think you had it right, realizing like, oh, it's like really getting into my heart and emotions and understanding that stuff is where all true success comes from. I mean, there are people who are so infinitely wealthy that don't have financial wealth, right? Yes. And so I think that is the journey that we all take in our own unique ways.
Absolutely. At the age of 34, I could say I was wealthy, but emotionally broke and broken. And what I talk about is men like our brothers, our fathers, CEOs, providers. These are the men with the golden mask. And as men, we're raised to be strong, to not cry, to not show our weakness. And we do it all in the name of providing for our family, for our loved ones, for our children. And yet, when we get to that level of success where we can bring home the cheese, so many of us men are broken, we're hurting inside. We have trapped emotions. We have grief, sadness, anger that we've never expressed. And those things start to come out in the weirdest ways.
Yeah.
So if you're a woman out there, if you have a boyfriend, a husband, a lover who's cheating, who's addicted to pornography, smokes too much weed, is going out drinking too much, overspending, overeating, these are all symptoms of unexpressed emotions. And we self-medicate as men, right? So women have this beautiful community of expressing themselves. Women are so adept at sharing their feelings, talking about it. And we don't do that as guys. And what we talk about is like football and sports and sex, but our true emotions never come out.
Yeah.
And we end up falling out of alignment with ourselves is what I call it.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about getting into alignment because that's really what you've shifted your focus. You've had such a unique journey, and now I know your primary focus is on helping people to get into alignment and understand why, most men kind of fail at money, sex, love, these sorts of things that you're talking about. So yeah, please share whatever it is you have to share.
Of course. So you see, most guys focus, like when we don't have money and we're not able to generate income, the first thing we want to work at as men is mindset, mentality. Don't give up. Positive thinking, meditation, affirmation, like become a warrior, right?
Yeah.
But then you go out there and you make the success, you make the money, and at some point you lose connection with your sensitivity, with your primal senses as a man. And becoming stronger and more mentally focused is not going to solve your problems at that point. So what I learned in my journey was I literally took 2 years off. I spent $500,000 and literally traveled the world and sought out the best trainers and coaches and healers, the ones that aren't commercialized, the ones that don't have a best-selling book, the people who hold the secrets, the keys to humanity, to spirituality, to health. And as I started practicing and working with these people, I started to learn. Specifically, I started to learn about how men disconnect with their feelings, how men use sexuality as a way to release anger, sadness, and grief. And as I started to understand these concepts, I came back to work, and I started working with men, teaching them how to have healthy sexuality, how to feel their feelings and express it openly in a strong and healthy way instead of hide it, disconnect, and isolate. I started learning how to have wealth and to create wealth from a place of playfulness and joy instead of a place of hard work and pain, which is what I had been taught as an immigrant, that you can't make money unless you really work hard and have pain in your life.
Right.
Right. And so these are these programs that we get taught and we go with it because they offer us some form of security or standard. But when you break through these paradigms and you start learning, wait a second, I can actually create wealth from playfulness and joy and connection instead of pain. I can actually connect with women from the heart and be completely sexually fulfilled to my deepest desires without chasing them or trying to like hit on them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, I decided to create a community. And that's what everybody does, right? When they go to the promised land and they come back with the wisdom, they want to share. And so that's become my life's purpose, to help ambitious, successful men find their hearts, connect with their deep spirituality, continue to create wealth from a place of joy and playfulness, and not to get stuck all the time.
Yeah. What are some of the takeaways that you've, I mean, obviously I know you do deep dive events and, over many days with people that we'll talk about more in a bit, but, for the purpose of this podcast and, not having days, what are some of the high level things that you sort of instruct and help people, help men to start to kind of navigate themselves out of the pitfalls, if you will?
Yeah. One of the basic things I start with is called radical authenticity. And it's a 10-step sequence that I teach men within a matter of 15 minutes on how to identify their feelings. What am I feeling? And how to express their feelings in a strong and powerful way. And so you see most guys, if you ask them, how are you feeling? They'll say, I'm feeling okay. Okay is not a feeling. I'm feeling fine. I'm good. These are not feelings. They're not emotions. And so what I teach men is like, are you feeling sad? Are you feeling angry? Are you feeling excited, joy, gratitude, shame? Let's talk about that real quick and use it in a powerful way to connect with each other. Then I teach men about sacred sexuality, how to use their sexual energy. And instead of releasing their sexual energy through porn, masturbation, and sex all the time, I teach them how to release their sexual energy and penetrate their life's purpose. Use their sexual energy, what they call sexual transmutation. Napoleon Hill talked about this in his famous book, right? And so most of us guys, as young boys, here's what happened. We went through puberty. And suddenly we had this monster truck called testosterone, right? And during sex education, we didn't really get sex education. We got making babies education, STD education. It's not really sex ed.
Yeah.
And so what they teach us is like, here's the penis, here's the vagina, here is a condom. Don't get the disease, don't get her pregnant. Okay, you're finished, you graduated. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right? And
Totally.
so they seat us behind this monster truck, and it's like, here's the gas, here's the brakes, go.
Yeah.
And most of us guys, naturally, we use this monster truck and we plow into all parts of our lives, destroying things, relationships, ourselves, emotions, and we're never fulfilled. We're never fulfilled. And so what I teach guys is like how to be in touch with their powerful primal sexuality and how to use it in business, in wealth, in connecting, and not in the traditional ways that you think of, just like, sex. It's a mystical version of how to use your sexual energy to penetrate the universe, not just somebody's body.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you explored, Soleil, like sort of some of these schools of thought pertaining to abstinence and sort of allowing yourself to harness sexual energy for some of these things over, like, I know there's some schools of thought regarding, like, be abstinent, no ejaculation for X number of like days or months or whatever. Have you went down that road?
Brandon, I have. And every time I talk about it, people, mostly men, they get very defensive because we've been taught, we've been programmed that the more we ejaculate, the more we have sex, the healthier we are.
Yeah.
And yet all studies show that men who ejaculate more often, they're more impotent in life, not just sexually or physically. We just get tired all the time. And you've seen that, like, if any of the women listeners, when you think about, like, when you've slept with somebody as a man, what happens after they orgasm and ejaculate? They're tired.
Yeah.
Right. And women are the opposite. Women can
Energized.
orgasm. Yeah, they get energized. So
Yeah.
what happens there? What happens is, as guys, we must learn how to retain and control our sexuality so that we can be completely fulfilled and not suppress our sexuality. We want to express our sexuality, but in a way which it energizes us instead of depletes us all the time.
Yeah. And it basically, it's almost like tantric philosophy, right? This idea of exploring sexuality, or, at least tantra as it pertains to sex, because tantra is really a school of philosophy and thought that is well beyond just sexual. But when in pertaining to sex, it's this idea that the end goal doesn't have to be ejaculation, right? And having, it's like no goal or aim in mind. And I think in our society, we've been taught it's sort of like okay, I got a job to do, and there's an end goal, and it everything ends with orgasm, and that's something that our society and culture has sort of taught us. And meanwhile, it's not necessarily the most fulfilling or empowering path, right?
Exactly. Where most guys are drained, they're tired, and we wonder how some men are able to compound their results in life. Think about Steve Jobs, Nikola Tesla, Muhammad Ali, the Dalai Lama. These people learned how to compound their work, meaning, like, when they go to sleep at night, they wake up the next day, they're just adding to what they built. Whereas most guys, we go to sleep at night, we wake up the next day, and we're like, oh man, we got to start all over again. These guys that I just listed, all of them practice what's called semen retention. And what they practice is something called sexual transmutation, where as a man, you learn how to express your sexuality and your sexual energy into your work. And you have you're able to have full fulfillment, sexual fulfillment, without oppressing your sexuality. So these are the types of things that I sometimes feel like I'm a double agent about. And I sometimes see myself as a James Bond, just like those days at the Playboy Mansion or sneaking into Tony Robbins events. At work, I'm a financial advisor. I wear a suit and tie every day, super conservative guy. You would never think that I practice all this spiritual stuff, jump off of helicopters and do all this incredible stuff. But my goal in life is to fuse the world of spirituality and mysticism with the world of business and wealth. Because so many times we hang out with people who are spiritual and they hate money and they think that everybody who makes money is evil.
Yeah.
And then we hang out with people who are in the corporate world, and they think all the spiritual people have no life, need to get a job, and are not productive.
Right.
Right. So how do we bring the two of them together, where you can be spiritual, you can be conscious, you can be mindful, and you can have wealth and financial success?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's, the book that I released a few months back, The Golden Key, is all really approaching and exploring that idea. The subtitle is Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. And, I really, as someone who's done the same thing, sort of walked in both worlds, have had, successful companies, and also, very deep on a spiritual path as well. It's like they're not mutually exclusive. These things are, two sides of the same coin. It's like science and spirituality. They're just two ways of approaching life. And I think, as I talk about in my book, true abundance isn't even wealth anyway. I mean, that is a form of abundance, but, I would say health is maybe the top form of abundance, or time, actually. It's like wealth is just a sort of a reflection of these concepts. And by the way, for anyone out there who hasn't checked out the book or heard me talk about it, if you go to goldenkey.gift, you can get the audio and or ebook as a gift with the code positivehead at checkout. So, but yeah, I mean,
and that's that one of the things I really appreciate about you, and I want to acknowledge to all the listeners, is how you've always been in the pursuit of consciousness and in the reality of creating wealth, business, abundance, a nice home. Like, you're really working in both energies. And that's one of the things I really respect about you, because it takes a lot of practice and discipline not to get sucked into just one field.
Yeah.
Because when we go into one field, we find significance there because we're like a big deal person in any one field. But to spread yourself amongst different modalities is where true mastery is found, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also been something that at times, I'm such a creative person. And so sometimes one of the things that I've questioned, and I'm curious, just because we kind of naturally got here in our conversation, I'm curious what your thoughts are. You've heard this idea of that one thing, like focus is so important. And for me, as someone who's so highly creative and, more ideas than I have time, it's like sometimes I've wondered, like, I spread myself too thin because I want to do this, I want to do that. I get really excited about things. And, so I'm curious if you've had any struggle around that, or just have any thoughts in general around, diversifying your energy versus that single-minded focus.
Yeah, it's a great question, Brandon. I think that, to have the most amount of potency, you got to focus yourself on one localized thing. But that doesn't mean that once you've mastered that thing, you can't go on to the next thing.
Right.
So it's like a collection of masteries that at some point of your life, you can put together to be your own blend of medicine.
Right. Yeah, makes sense. So let's talk a little bit about, this journey for you, and, what do you think has helped you most in your journey? Because, some people hear this and probably think like, oh, I could never be abstinent, as an example of one thing we talked about, or, where do I begin? Like, how do I start to make those shifts to, leading me to a path of greater fulfillment and power in my life?
I'll take one step back. I want to share one thing I learned by being a bomb shelter survivor, which will play right into your question. One thing I learned as a bomb shelter survivor is that change doesn't have to be progressive and linear. It could be instant. So oftentimes when we're in a certain situation, we have certain challenges in our life, we're in a relationship, things might not be working out well. And we sometimes imagine that to change where we are is going to take a lot of work, and we're going to progressively get to a place of success or betterment. And what I've found in my life, and what I've experienced at Burning Man so many times, is you could be in like the worst place on earth, And then instantly something changes. And suddenly you're in this like incredible space. And you look back and you're like, wait, a day ago, 10 minutes ago, I was so down and I was so destitute. And suddenly change came so rapidly and so instantly. So the first part of the answer for your question is like, allow that openness of the universe to serve you. Don't think that change has to be long and hard and has to take a long time. And I'm saying that specifically to people out there who are struggling in challenging relationships, in addictions, overspending, stuck in a place of money lack. The first thing you need to know is change doesn't have to be progressive. It could be instant. So be patient and set your intention for that instant change to happen. That's the first thing. Number two is, you show me the 5 people you hang out with, and I'll tell you who you're going to be. Right? And you know that better than anyone, Brandon, because you've built this incredible community around you of positive, heart-centered, high-conscious people. And so you and your community have elevated one another. You share with each other, you support each other. And whoever is a part of your community is blessed by all of the assets in the community. And so for the people listening, especially if there's men out there who are struggling, whether it's struggling in relationships, struggling with loneliness, struggling with emotions, grief, hang out with men, find a community of men who can support you, who are open, who don't hide, who stand in truth. And just by being in their presence, change will inevitably happen. So I'm a firm believer, as I mentioned earlier, that change doesn't have to be hard and painful, and you got to go through hell, because that's what I'd been taught initially by my immigrant parents. There were survivors, and the entire experience was based on pain. So soon enough, they found significance in pain. And so many of us, when there's trouble, there's challenges in our life, whether it's at business or in relationship, as soon as a challenge pops up, we're like, okay, I'm going to fix this. I'll take it from here. And what we do inadvertently is we start finding significance in the problem. We find significance as the person who's a problem solver. And what that does is it expands the problem. So what if you can find significance in success? You can find significance in ease, in solution, instead of significance in challenge, in trouble, in darkness.
Yeah, very, very interesting. How, it's so interesting how we all get programmed through, a set of experiences, whether early on or, the most consistent experiences at some point, and then it turns into our narrative about who we are, how the world works. And of course, then it becomes like a self-affirming, self-fulfilling prophecy in a sense, because as you tell the story, this is how the world works, because you are one with the creator and created rolled into one, is like, as I say, oh, this is what the world is. This is how it works. This is how I operate. And then I see more of that. Oh, there it is. See, I've got proof. And then it just continues to reflect, and not realizing that the story that you're telling, the narrative that you're telling around reality is all coming from, within, and then being reflected externally.
Absolutely. It's like the place of challenge, the place of hardship becomes your domain. And you become the mistress or the master of that domain, and you don't even realize it. But what you're starting to see is that you might find significance in being that person that's always challenged with money, being the person who's always in shitty relationships, excuse my language. That's your significance. And you can talk about it, and people will listen to you, and they'll be like, oh, wow, I can't believe you had such a hard time. But what you're not realizing, just like what Brandon said, is you're creating a domain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And so what would you say to someone who can now is sort of self-analyzing as we talk about this and say, oh, wow, I've done a lot of creating significance around things that I don't want to see more of. What are some of the, first steps that someone could take to change that?
So what I talk about often, especially to men, is our identities. And we build identities in life to find significance. So as an example, the identity of a good father, the identity of a good son, identity of a businessman, the identity of a financial advisor in my case. And so these identities give us safety as well as significance. We feel good in them. They're a part of our domain. But what happens is with any identity, it starts to trap you. Because whatever your domain is, your mastery is that you take pride in, you're actually closing off the infinite field of possibility for other abundant things to happen in your life. As an example, I was a financial advisor for so many years, and I took so much pride in it, top guy, suit and tie every single day. And deep inside, I always wondered how it would be for me to create a community of successful guys that I could take on radical, mind-blowing adventures. But it wasn't compatible with the identity that I had built. And it wasn't until I discovered that this was an identity for me and that I had to release it. Right? So the first part of the answer for your question is like, if you're out there listening, take inventory of what identities you find significance in. Whether it's an identity of a victor or identity of a victim, it doesn't matter. They all trap you. And so just like a computer, right? If you have a computer, a lot of times there's these viruses that are running in the background. You have no idea what these viruses are, just like identities, programs. And it's not until you start taking inventory and doing a computer scan that you start realizing, oh my God, it's got all these softwares and viruses running in the background.
Yeah.
So just
sucking the life force out of the computer, right?
Yeah. So just taking inventory and noticing the identity programming that you're running in your life allows it to dissipate.
Yeah.
80% of it is just acknowledging it.
Yep.
Right? And so if you're out there struggling with addiction or struggling in relationships, or you're a man who has this incredible wife or girlfriend and you cheating on the side and you have these secrets, what identity are you finding significance in here? What is that identity? And the moment that you identify the identity and you say, I don't want to be significant in this ordeal, then the universe starts to open up for you.
Yeah, I think it's important for you to, when you can come to a place that you realize the foundation of your true significance is just in your being, just in the, for me, it's the knowing and realization that I'm one with the source consciousness that creates and animates all things. I'm a fractal of the divine. I am a divine being. And so are you. Maybe the difference between me and someone else could be they're not telling that story. All their significance comes from what they drive, who they are, what they do, whatever story they're telling. And it's like, what a relief to tell the story of my significance lies in the core of my being. I don't need to prove my existence, period. I don't need to prove anything to anyone in order to be a worthy being. I am by default, unless I tell a story that I'm not, in which case I can have the experience that I'm not because I'm such a powerful creator being that I create that experience. So it's really, really empowering to live from that perspective. And anytime I ever find myself, oh my gosh, I should be further along, I should do this, I should, because I definitely have those moments where it's like, oh, I could have done this better or this different. And, any of those traps, it's like, oh, hold on, you are enough just by virtue of your existence.
Yes, exactly. And it takes a lot of pain to learn that when you finally surrender to it. And that's when you actually connect with your God, is your existence. So thank you for sharing that, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important for people to get this, to understand this. And, now if you're really operating from that that level of, being and wisdom and truth, now it becomes, okay, now I can do anything that I do is really just icing on the cake. It's in no way it could be fun and exciting and produce results and significance in certain arenas and all those things, but it's not the foundation of anything. It's sort of, now if you get the wealth, it's not, this is my identity. And so if it goes away, I'm now nothing, right? It's like, it's all like bonus. It's all a bonus above and beyond the real truth, which you've already won.
Yes. And it becomes more of a play and playfulness. Like
right.
Money comes and money goes. To me, currency is its own current. So what I teach men about is like, how can you position yourself in the current of currency so that you don't have to constantly work hard for it? It comes through you. You and I have had this conversation many times. It's like, it's an energy force. Just have to allow it to come and go.
Yep. And it's meant to flow. And when you're allowing it to flow through you in a way that feels expansive and not retractive, then, it creates more. And I've seen it many times with, I always reference my old business partner. He would spend money like crazy because he wasn't focused on spirituality at the time or any of that. He just believed that there's just more. There's more coming. I don't even need, necessarily need to know how. And, and it just like, and I've watched his life unfold. He was better at that than me. I was more as a business partner, like, oh, no, we got to be more thrifty, more careful, more. And it's funny because I can see now, this guy sold the small part of his business for $80 million a month ago. And, just expansive in that way. And it's like watching, and so I've really come to the conclusion that if you're spending in something that really feels good to support or be a part of, and you tap into that when you are allowing it to leave your bank account, right? You're not losing, you're going to gain. It's only going to create more. So I always check in with myself as I'm spending on, does this feel really good to, buy this thing for myself? Maybe that could be viewed frivolous as a great time to think of it. Like, but is this going to enhance my life and lead to positive feelings for me and those around me and just all around goodness and richness of life? Cool. This isn't costing me. This is going to add. And I don't even need to know how it will be replaced, but it will be replaced, that financial resource, and it works like a charm.
Yeah, I love that. And it's a muscle. You got to practice. You got to lift that muscle. It's painful. Sometimes you're scared. You're like, oh my God, if I spend this money, is it ever going to come back? And you just got to have, you got to have faith. And I heard a beautiful definition of faith just a couple of days ago. I'm here in Tulum, and of course everybody's super spiritual and everything they say is like word of God. But somebody said faith is unconditional belief. And I always say faith is a down payment to fortune.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that. Down payment to fortune. Very, very powerful. You got to pay it forward.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Solay, I'd like to switch gears for a moment here and ask you a question that I'm always curious to hear from all of my guests. And we love stories of synchronicity and serendipity and positive paranormal stories on the show. And I got to think anyone who would find themselves now, for an extended period of time in Tulum has something up your sleeve that would be inspiring to hear.
Oh my God, synchronicities. They're not my specialty. Just because I don't know, I just go through life, I flow, and things happen all the time, and I'm like, oh, that was supposed to happen. I don't see it as like a unique thing, but right. I don't know. I can't think of anything in this moment. I promised myself I'd have something for you, so I'm feeling a little bit of shame around not being able to provide this in this moment.
Well, maybe that's the whole lesson is. It's a learning around shame, because once we tell the story, we've got to do something in order to be significant, right? Like, oh, well, if I'm going to be on the Positive Head podcast, I better have a story of synchronicity off the top of my head. right? And really that has
Yeah.
nothing to do with your value or worth. So shame makes no sense. It's just like, oh, nothing's coming to mind. I'm sure there's been things, and even me, I have like a ton of that sort of stuff. It's like sort of, been a big part of my journey. And yet if you ask me on the spot to think of one, I would probably go,
Yeah,
well, let's see,
exactly. That's how I feel.
Yeah. So, well, I think
Right.
that is a good, I think that is an important lesson that came out of you not having an answer. And if you think of one before we end this, by all
Yeah,
means,
absolutely.
share.
Absolutely.
So for
Yeah.
those who want to connect with you, maybe get involved with some of your work, as far as your radical men's coaching and the events that I know you've got some really cool stuff coming up that I'm considering participating in if I can make it happen with my schedule. So maybe you could share a little bit about that.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. At the age of 34, as a guy who was a highly ambitious man who was trying to do as best as I could in this world, I looked at myself and I'm like, man, I'm struggling here. I'm struggling with my relationship with my girlfriend. I don't know how to show up for her all the time. I'm addicted to porn, and I'm like struggling with like cheating, and gosh, like all these things were being swept under the rug. And I had this awakening moment, and I'm like, that's not normal. Like that
Mm,
can't be normal, right? And every guy talks about it as if it's normal and as if it's almost cool. But I
right.
was like, this can't be normal, right? And so I would daydream at times around going to a transformational personal development event where I could have my mind blown. It could be fun and creative, and it would be profitable for me by the type of contacts that I made there. Because as a Persian Jew, I don't like losing money. Okay, let's put it out there. So, so nothing like this was out there. When I looked outside in terms of the personal development space, all the personal development programs were either like super long term, like 9 months, 10 months. I didn't have time for that. I was busy,
Yeah.
or they were mix of men and women, and they were talking about mindset and relationship, but I couldn't really talk about my personal issues that related to my manlyhood, sexual shame, wanting to cheat. How do I deal with wealth, the pain, and the type of grief I had? I couldn't talk about those type of things. So I decided to take the leap of faith and create it. And so over the last couple of years, I've created the most radical personal development coaching program in the world, specifically designed for ambitious men. And the purpose of this personal development community, we're a community of guys, is we get together, we do mastermind calls, we talk about men's issues, we try to elevate ourselves emotionally, spiritually, financially, and sexually. And those are sometimes things that never go together when you go to personal development programs. But we've combined it all. And in fact, we have a retreat that's coming up, which is our annual retreat. It's coming up in Tulum on December 1st through December 8th. And it's an 8-day personal development program. It's not a vacation at all. And
Hmm.
what I've decided to do is I've hired one of the best coordinators in the world. The guy's a longtime Burning Man veteran and Guinness Book of Records record holder. And we designed a course for men that combines emotional sensitivity, primal engagement, um, relaxation, playfulness, and also pushing men to the edge of their reality. And one of the ways which we're going to do this in that 8-day period of time is we've rented helicopters, and we actually had to pay off the Coast Guard here in Mexico. And we're taking men off on
Wow.
a helicopter ride and having them jump into the ocean, swim onto a raft where we're going to do a coaching session in the middle of the ocean, talking to men about what's their life's purpose. What are they hiding from themselves? Where is it that they're not in touch with their spirit, with their emotions, with their power? How can they use these intense experiences to deliver to this world their purpose as a man, as a provider? So we're combining it, with fun and games and beautiful music and fire spinners and literally anything I could get my hands on. I just went out and hired here in Mexico. So if you're out there as a woman and you think this would be great for your husband, your boyfriend, so if you have a boyfriend who's kind of bored with his success, he's a good guy, but he's just not operating at his highest in terms of emotions and mind and spiritual and sex, send him over. Have him join our community. He doesn't have to come to our event right away, but become a part of our community and let's heal together. Let's connect together. Let's resource share. Because as CEOs and founders, what we do in these communities is we not only improve ourselves, but we go out there and improve the world. And that's been my mission here.
Beautiful. Yeah, that sounds so epic. And I know how thorough and thoughtful you are, and attention to detail and obvious, and even just the way you speak and carry yourself. It's like, so I know that this is going to be such an intense, powerful gathering for anyone who participates. And I wish I'd learned about it a little sooner than I did. I'm talking about trying to come down, even maybe for a few days. It's a possibility. I have quite a bit going on, currently business-wise that would make it maybe a little challenging, but I'm seeing if I can. And like I said, even if it's for a few days, don't know for sure if that's going to happen or not, but considering that on my end. So, and of course, I'm sure there'll be future ones as well. So, yeah.
Brandon, I'm going to save you a seat on the helicopter with your name on it, on the seat, just in case you do show up last second, because I know you like to do surprise things. And I can't wait. I can't wait to experience this with the guys, because heck, I need this type of healing and this type of experience as much as anyone else does. That's why I created it. And one of the things I told you that I think you found funny was this theme is James Bond meets Buddha at Burning Man. So we're looking at guys who are sophisticated and successful. They're looking for a spiritual experience and something that's wild and a once in a lifetime adventure. So yeah, the door is open, Brandon. I can't wait to have you. If you can make it, I would be so honored to have you, brother.
Oh, I so appreciate that. And what, for those who are interested in learning more, what's the best way for them to connect with you and find out, et cetera?
Sure. They can go to the website called Men of Means, menofmeans.org, menofmeans.org. And there you can either send me a message at the bottom of the website where it says contact me, and just communicate with me. If you have any questions or you just want to join our community or you're curious about this, I would love to have a conversation with you. Or if you want to contribute to this movement, if you're a guy out there that's like, wow, this sounds amazing, I would love to contribute. I would love to promote or create content in this type of work, join me. And for those of you who are interested in the upcoming retreat, it's menofmeans.org/Tulum, which is spelled TULUM. And there you'll see all the information about the retreat. And I've promised Brandon that his audience members are going to get not just $1,000 of discount, but also we're going to add some really special treatment and gifts along the way for the Positive Head community, because I know that your community, Brandon, is so strong and so connected and so loyal that it would be such an honor to give back to your community and support the men and support the women in your community so that you can have more heart-centered leaders that are in the center of their being. So thank you.
Yeah, beautiful. I appreciate you doing that. And I'm sure there will be some folks out there who it aligns for, and it just feels like divine timing. And, I'm excited to see how it all unfolds. And this has been amazing, man. I'm so grateful to have you on. You're such an inspiration, Solay. And, I remember not so long ago, you getting some press helping a homeless person, or someone experiencing homelessness, as I think is better to say. And, I remember at that time hearing about it. And did it get picked up? It got picked up on the news and things. I just thought it was such a cool.
Yeah, it got picked up on a lot of news. I saw a 77-year-old homeless man. He said, "Can you help me?" I was like, "Yeah, here's $5." He gave me the $5 back. He's like, "That's not help. I need somewhere to sleep." Wow. And I was like, "Are you serious?" And
Wow.
he's like, yeah. I was like, all right, come stay at my house. So he stayed with me for 30 days and we rehabilitated him and got him positioned in a nice nursing home. So thank you for recalling that.
Yeah, so cool, man. Who does that? Solay does that, and I am inspired by you, my friend. And I do have one final question for you as we wind down here, and this is my cliche closer. In 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life according to Solay Rad?
Oh man, the meaning of life is to to be connected to yourself, to be connected to other beings, whether humans, animals, and plants, and to see the beauty of its pure existence without having to do anything at all, as we explained earlier in the podcast, is just exist in the divine creation that has been placed for us.
Yes, I love it. I love it, love it, love it. And so it is. All of you out there listening, thank you as always for tuning in your beautiful brainwaves and incredible hearts. Until next time, journey well, everyone. Also, before we sign off, I wanted to remind you to download the Golden Key audio or ebook as my free gift to you at goldenkey.gift using the Golden Key code POSITIVEHEAD. And please, if you enjoy my gift, leave a positive review on Amazon so others can find the book and unlock their lives with the help of the Golden Key as well.